you, Zach. Yeah, good morning to you all. So I got up this morning and I had a shower and then I was getting dressed and I caught my marla in my fingers. I was putting my t-shirt over my head anyway. And I broke this marla and it was a marla that I've had since 86, which Jinananda, someone on his ordination retreat made him this mala, and he took in '85 when I was ordained. I was the first person to take the Rothful Vajrapana as a sadhana practice, well, in the men's wing anyway, and Jinananda also took Vajrapani as his sadhana practice, and someone had made him this very nice blue mala. Oh, there's little metal bits in it and stuff. Anyway, nice mala. And when he came back from Tuscany, he gave it to me. So I've been using it for the last 37 years, I guess, something like that. And I have got another one actually, which is around my neck, which is also blue, because I recently thought, I'm going to break sometime soon. Because it hadn't, I've used it extensively, And it's only on a bit of cord, quite thin sort of cord running through it. Anyway, it broke this morning. Hopefully I found all the bits and I'll get it restrung, But it did just, it's interesting, isn't it, with objects that you become attached to, you kind of invest something in, and felt quite kind of significant somehow. I don't know what significance it is, but how things come apart, and how the connections we make in our life in the end shatter in a way, in the end come apart, whether that person dies or we die, or how it's all, we sort of get things in a row, don't we, or strung together, and at some point things do fall apart. We're in a maybe I'm being influenced by Ukraine in that sense of something coming apart, isn't there? Some kind of understanding of Europe that's existed pretty much since the end of the Second World War seems to be beginning to come apart. And however careful we are about our own lives, of course, things happen to us, don't they? We get old, or we get ill, or we get disabled, or our loved ones die, and so on and so forth. So it's always going to happen, and in a way, we can think of this as it's difficult, but of course, it's when things fall apart that something can also happen with us, isn't it? When things go wrong, it's a whole. I don't want to be kind of. It's a cliche. It's a cliche, but it's also true that really what our practice is about, I think, and your practice is about, whatever you think it's about, isn't it? But I tend to think these days we practice because when something happens, I'm not talking about a mala breaking here. I'm talking about, in my case, it's losing my sight, And I feel so grateful for my practice because I feel I've got the kind of resources to find a different way of seeing, yeah, a different way of seeing that I don't, that it takes me personally. I mean, it's very, I often, most years I do retreat at Dharmakosha, and there's a very nice woman that comes on those retreats, and she's also losing her sight. A little bit better than mine these days, but it's going for her, and it's going for me. And we always have a little chat at some point during the retreat, and inevitably, I think this happens with a lot of disabled people actually, when they meet someone with a similar disability, you sort of joke about the abled, as it were, the sight, in our case, the sighted, and people say, and this time we were saying how common it is for when people hear you're losing your sight, they say, "Oh, I can't think of anything worse. That's terrible." And you sit there thinking, yeah, that's a really helpful thing to say. That makes people, and I do say, when she said it to me, I said, oh, not that I have, but I said, well, you know, it's a lack of imagination, haven't you? You can't think of anything worse. But of course, the thing is, why I say that is that things, we have all this anxiety, anticipatory anxiety, don't we, quite often? Sometimes it rules our life, this sort of anticipatory anxiety about what if. And actually, when these so-called terrible things happen to us, well, they might be terrible, but actually they're not just terrible. Things aren't just terrible, you know, or they're not necessarily just terrible. They offer a kind of opportunity. They offer an insight. Yeah, insight can come about in very many different ways. You know, it can come about because you fall in love and your heart opens. It can come about because your heart is cracked, broken, and opened in that way. And whether it's an extremely positive, blissful experience or a very difficult, dark experience, of course it matters because you prefer to have one than the other. But actually, the potential for insight is no more or less, I don't think. What needs to happen is some sort of disruption of your normal self. In the alchemical tradition that I'm very interested in, following Jung, you know, we've decided that actually these alchemists, a lot of these ancient alchemists, weren't really about changing lead into gold. What they were really doing is what they were really concerned with was the inner or a spiritual transformation, which was they were using the kind of, it's not quite a metaphor, but they believed that the work that they did outside with the metal or the chemicals is mirrored by inner work. I mean, this is actually a very common way of thinking, that most artists, I think, or musicians, see this. You know, they're not just doing it to produce an external object. Of course, they might be producing a painting of much beauty, but actually, most of the artists I know, for them, doing art is a way of exploring their inner landscape, isn't it? So it's not such an odd idea that these alchemists, we think they had now. Anyway, Jung decided that actually what was going on was this, with the authentic alchemists, was that they were engaged in a hermeneutic spiritual path, and they understood that if you could change something on one level, it would have an effect on another level. Well, I was saying that, oh yeah, anyway, the point I wanted to make, that in the alchemical tradition, the first and most fundamental stage, in a way, is the nigredo, what's called the nigredo, or the blackening. And this is allowing things to break down, because it's only when we allow things to break down that they can reorganize and change. So there's always a descent. This is what you know, in the Christian tradition would be called the dark night of the soul or something. You know, in the mythic tradition is known as the descent, isn't it? Very often it's a literal descent into the underworld, not into hell, although Christ went to hell, didn't he? But because it's very important to understand that in most traditions, the underworld isn't hell. It's a place where souls are, you know, souls hang out, you know, the shades are, and it's as the god of the underworld in the Roman is Pluto, isn't it? So, which implies it's a place of riches, you know, we get plutocrat, don't we? It's a place of great riches. It's not a place of torment, you know, not in most traditions. That's a sort of Christian twist to things, you know, where the daimonic became the demonic. You know, all the other spiritual forces other than God were demonized. So you get this daimonic turning into the demonic, you know, which is very against the Buddhist understanding of things, you know. Buddhism had a daimonic universe, if you like, you know, whether it was tree spirits or spirits of the earth, or the gods, they were all included in Buddhism. It doesn't have a creator God, so it doesn't have a spiritual force that is outside of the creation. I was talking about this a little bit yesterday, I think, or the day before, which is, I think, a fundamental difference. Once you place the creator outside of creation, you've got well, anyway, I won't go back and go on about that, but you've got a very alienated and you turn the world into a negative place, really. Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so if you want to change, of course, something usually has to sort of crack up a bit, break down a bit. I'm not suggesting, please don't get me wrong, as meditators and as spiritual practitioners, we don't go looking for trouble, you know. Don't try and force some experience. If you just, you know, experience bliss all the time, lovely, you know. But of course, none of us, I think, get through life without the possibility of insight arising. The possibility of insight arising happens whenever there's some disruption, in a way. Whenever there's a little bit of a gap or a bardo between our normal sense of ourselves, or our normal life. And this can happen in big ways, you know, as I say, through death or illness or heartbreak, or it can happen in little ways. You can drop your favorite cup, or you can tear your favorite skirt or whatever, you know. Just little things, you know, little things. Who knows? Insight is always offering itself to you, because insight is simply reality revealing itself to you. The nature of reality is always apparent in a way. The Tibetans have this saying that I've always really loved, where they say, you cannot wake up someone who's only pretending to be asleep. You cannot wake up someone who's only pretending to be asleep, by which they mean we're all pretending, we are deluded, but in a way it's a willful delusion. We're willfully deluding ourselves. We're pretending in a way to be deluded, because actually the nature of reality is in our face all the time. Yeah. But usually, because we've grown up, we've made these ego defenses, and we've got our life organized, and we're gonna progress, aren't we? We're gonna get better and better. Yeah. And all this, so much of this activity, getting a house, getting things, getting a good job, blah, 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 so much of this activity is a sort of frantic attempt to avoid reality, isn't there? But there is a alternative, and the alternative is to stop, isn't it? Just to stop and let reality catch up with you. It's not far behind. It's right there, really. Just let it catch up with you. What we're doing as meditators is that, first of all, we're spending quite a lot of time developing calm and learning to love ourselves, developing love, developing calm. And then when the opportunity comes along, and maybe the opportunity will come along as an extraordinary, beautiful experience, or maybe the opportunity will come along as a very difficult, dark experience. When the opportunity comes, and it will come, when the opportunity comes, we can absorb it. We can let it get into our bones, yeah, and we can realize that reality is just reality, and we're just reality, yeah. And there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. Come, my friends, be not afraid. In love we are born, and in love we pass away. As our dear departed Leonard Cohen says to us. So I'm not about gloom, I'm all about joy, really. I want us to be happy, but we can't ever really be happy until we recognize how things are. Yeah. And we are very, most of us, of course, I can't speak for you because I don't know your situations, but I know my situation, and I'm extraordinarily privileged, aren't we? I get up, I've got hot water, I've got a place to live, I've got clothes, I've got food. I'm so extraordinarily privileged. I haven't got bombs coming down on my house. I've got this wonderful way of making my livelihood, if you like, sitting with other people. I'm extraordinarily privileged and grateful for my life. Anyway. And what a fantastic thing when you get old and you really start to really realize the finite nature of it all. So we'll do some meditation together as always. So get yourselves comfortable. So I have to look at my phone because it's the only thing I can see the time on anymore. But sometimes I look at it and it doesn't make any sense to me. It's as if my brain isn't getting enough information to. Anyway, it says 31. Isn't getting enough information to make sense of that. Okay, get yourselves comfortable. We've got seeing through to do, haven't we? We've been. But as I say, in a way, I was talking about that in a sense. I mean, you don't have to worry about insight. You know, you're gonna have plenty of opportunity. Don't worry about it. Don't try and make it happen. It will happen. All you've got to do is be, calm enough and loving enough to use whatever, however it offers itself to you. But I will say more about it at some point. This idea of seeing through. But very crudely put, it's just the movement from a kind of egocentric to a archetypal or universal sense. But anyway, I will say more about it. Not now though. Too much. That's it. We had a very grey day yesterday in London. A lot of wet. Looks a bit brighter from what I can tell today. Coming through my front windows. It was quite bright. So whatever, let's have a sense of what's above our heads, yeah? Distance between your crown and the ceiling, and then the distance between the ceiling and the roof of the house, and then above the roof of your house or your apartment or whatever, wherever you are. Just the sky might be blue, might be cloudy. Through the clouds there's always that, well, it's just a wonderful, I don't really like flying these days because of all the airport malarkey, but amazing thing, isn't it, when you go through the clouds on an aircraft and you come out to that blue, infinite blue space. It always amazes me how people, we go on aircraft now and we just take it for granted. What an extraordinary thing is happening when you're flying on an aircraft. Just taken for granted. Can you imagine people in the Middle Ages getting in an aircraft? Blown their minds, wouldn't it, to zoom up into the marvellous, as it used to be called. The sky. But anyway, have a sense of that sky above you. This delicate atmosphere of this planet of ours. Oh, that's such a funny way, isn't it? This planet of ours. Anyway, this planet which we surely have a debt and a responsibility towards our mother, really, our divine mother, the sky above, and below us this world, marvelous, delicate world. Unbelievably rich, living world that we have. It supports us and gives us everything we need. Air, food, shelter, clothing, everything comes from the earth, doesn't it? A sense of that world around you, that earth under you, that sky above you. Let's go down to our pelvic floor. Let's find our breath down in the pelvic floor if we can. There's always a little bit of movement down there associated with the breath, quite subtle probably. Just feel what's happening around the perineum, around the sort of anus there. You'll probably find a little bit of movement as you breathe in and out. What would it be to kind of open energetically to the earth under you? You don't have to take this literally. Although I don't doubt that there's some kind of energetic connection between our body and the body of the world. How could it be otherwise? We're feeling into our pelvic floor and the sitting bones there. Let's get a bit of spaciousness, a bit of ease into our hips. Just imagine a kind of secondary or energetic breath, stabilized by your normal breath. Just opening up the pelvis a bit, opening up the groin, opening up the hips. What would it be to open down there? It's sort of fundamental, isn't it? It's a little bit scary, I think, sometimes to really open in the lower body. I do, when I'm doing this sort of work, I do feel a certain limitation, I must say, because I know a lot of the people here are women, and I don't have a womb, and I think that's a whole nother area, which is of such importance, really, both energetically, but also metaphorically. I apologise for not really being able to give any guidance of how to work with that, but I do. It's obviously so important, isn't it? Sometimes I do think that we've all got a kind of psychic womb down there, but I'm not so sure, yeah. According to the Taoist Meidan tradition, which is our internal alchemical tradition of energy work, women are quite a substantial advantage to men doing this sort of work. Our connection with the moon and the feminine energy is very advantageous to their spiritual life, particularly after menopause, funny enough, which is known in this tradition of a second spring, and women come fully into their spiritual power. But anyway, that's another story that I don't really have much access to experientially. Anyway, man or woman, there's still something about opening up that pelvic area, opening up the hips, opening up the sexual organs there, energetics of our basic life energy, our basic instinctual. Your face relax, and let it relax. Soften your feet a little bit. There's so much, I'm sorry, we've not, so much we're not going to have time to get round to, but I hope you start getting some idea of the tender, careful work you can do with your own body, just with the breath and a little, allowing the body to imagine itself rather than putting your ego ideas on your body. Rather than finding your body unsatisfactory, everything's unsatisfactory from the ego's point of view. That's the way it's made, or the way we make it. But to really start to work with a kind of sensitivity to the body, which is a celebration of your life. Those areas of your body that you might feel dissatisfied with or unhappy about, there's so much tenderness in those areas. There's so much potential to open for attending to those areas. There's parts of us that are rejected in a way, and they hold something very special for this sort of work. this coming into your full humanity, if you like. I fought for today this morning, and a guy was reminding us that the word humanity comes from the Latin humus, meaning earth. Our humanity is this earth, if you like, the earth of us. Anyway, we're with the legs, we're trying to release, we're trying to let the pelvis fall open like a bowl or a flower. So don't expect to get some kind of clarity when you're down in your own underworld. I was saying the underworld is a place of shades, nothing's going to be. We're not looking for some kind of intellectual clarity. That would be to impose upon it. That would be like Hercules invading the underworld, killing the Cerberus, and the doggy, the three-headed dog. Does he kill him? No, he just drugs him, I think, doesn't he? Anyway, he makes a real mess and a real nuisance. The heroic going into the underworld. Much more like Inanna, when she goes down into the underworld, she has to, at the 7 gates, disrobe herself of all her finery, all of her remember the name that's used, but anyway, all her jewellery, all of her insignias as a goddess, and so when she faces her sister down in the underworld, she's completely naked. So we're trying to experience our body not from the ego perspective, from the perspective of the whole of our psyche, which of course includes all our inferiority. When we turn towards these aspects of ourselves with real tenderness and kindness, they often reveal themselves in very unexpected ways. And they're fully embraced. They often have a wonderful gift for us, something quite unexpected. All those things that you're scared of might hold the riches of Hades. Anyway, it's all just a fancy way of talking, isn't it? So our hips, our legs, our feet. And let's come up through the core, so from the root, see what's going on with your breath. Is there a drawing up? In a lot of traditions, there's a kind of drawing up done on the in-breath from the root. But who knows, sometimes this flow gets reversed, so don't necessarily assume that's what's going to feel like for you. But what does it feel like? If you imagine a point from the root and another point just above it, which would be the sexual center, I'm going to use that term. And start with that. Just if you breathe in and imagine a drawing up, coming in through the root and up to the sexual center. Does that drawing up happen on your in-breath or your out-breath? What's going on? Or there's nothing going on, that's all right as well, don't worry. So this is a kind of playfulness. We do this energetic work. Don't ever take it too seriously. Once you start taking it too seriously, what's happened is an appropriation. You've appropriated it. And you risk becoming not only a bit of a bore, but even more worrying. You risk the kind of inflation, This is the great risk of the spiritual life, really, is inflation. Of course, none of us think we're going to get inflated, but when we look at the list of really rather good spiritual teachers that have become inflated, none of us are free from that danger, really. So we don't take it too seriously. It's a playfulness. And all the really interesting things in our lives happen sort of a little bit in the shadow, in the periphery, not in the blinding light of ego consciousness. The light too bright in a way. So we're drawing up from root to the sexual center. What does that feel like, connecting those two? And then we've done it before, and we're working with this imaginal central channel. You might imagine it just in front of the spine or encompassing the spine. I've said before, in some traditions it's a blue, kind of luminous, blue channel of light, it's imagined, but in other traditions you'll find different ways of imagining. Just as we find slightly different centers and different but this central channel business is quite common, it's quite ubiquitous across different cultures, so it sort of implies there's some kind of, it corresponds with some kind of psychophysical, experiential you've got quite a big from up, next center in some systems at least is the sort of navel. So it's quite a big way, isn't it, from the sexual center up to the navel center. There's a lot of we're going through a lot of territory, aren't we, if we think of it as a journey of our digestive, reproductive, our guts. We're just gently drawing up towards the navel, so we're going from the root to the navel. Let your face relax. Just sort of imagining a drawing up, probably on the in-breath, and then a kind of releasing. Does it go down when you breathe out? A bit like the mercury in a thermometer. Is it like the great winged serpent coiling, nice soft face. And we've got that mysterious journey through the solar plexus. What a fantastic word, isn't it? Solar plexus. To the heart area, the inner chamber, that portal to the universal in a way. The world or worlds come into us. A beating heart of yours. So that's drawn up, we're drawing up, or allowing to rise up, or just connecting the heart with the root, and by extension the earth. So this is we're imagining a sort of journey through the core of us, you know, up from the base. It's just a fancy way of being a little bit more aware of our body as a imaginal, metaphorical, energetic, non-literal. It's like a land, isn't it? Because it doesn't really belong to us, because there's not really any us for it to belong to. It's a home for so many living things, with such a history that goes back to the stars coming into being. Those atoms, those energetic particles that make you up, have been around for billions and billions of years. And this unbelievable biology, which has evolved over millions and millions of years. And this extraordinary life that you have the privilege of experiencing. What an extraordinary thing to have this body in this world and some awareness of it. It's just completely extraordinary, completely ungraspable. completely beyond our capacity to really understand, but we can open into it. And when you, whatever you is, has gone, those particles will be making up something else. We can even talk in that way, I'm not sure. Let your face relax if you can. Up from the heart, to the upper chest, to the throat, the line in the Lorca poem where it says, "The secrets I wore around my throat, unbeknownst to me, have come open." What's the flowering that can happen in your throat? What's quite not, what is it that you've quite never managed to articulate, wants to be said? What do you want to offer to the world? What do you want to voice? Up through the throat, the middle of the brain, if you like, the brow center. It's back, isn't it, from the third eye, where we imagine the third eye, the Dharma eye, and the kind of center on the same basic vertical axis as the spine, extended. And not so far from the brow to the crown, not so far. And let's join our hands to our arms and our arms to our torso, and energetically. I'm using different ways you can imagine this. I quite often imagine an energetic, a sort of secondary circuit. So we've got this central channel, and then you might like to imagine adding two kind of secondary circuits, one going from the hands, up the arms, into the torso, the shoulders, and then drawn down to the heart. So we're making an energetic connection between our hands and our heart. This is a very traditional idea or imaginal move. The hands express the heart. There's a saying in English, isn't there? The hands express the heart. And of course we express our heart through our hands so much in the world, through our craft, our art, our making, our cooking, our caring, our loving. And our hands got this beautiful combination of strength and sensitivity. So we can connect the hands to the heart. In the Zen tradition we have this lovely phrase, after the enlightenment you return to the marketplace with bliss bestowing hands. This is why we're doing all of this, not because, well anyway. So there's this secondary circuit we can imagine going from hands to heart and feeding into the central channel. And likewise we can draw up through the soles of the feet and just find out where that wants to join the central channel. For me it's not quite at the root. It's just above. Well, I don't want to get too complicated, as in there's a little place where you might find as you draw up from the root, there's a little catch somewhere between the root and the navel. Quite, yeah, probably just about. Anyway, see if you can find a place that it feels that secondary channel of your feet, legs can enter the central channel. Anyway, don't take this too seriously. Yeah, we're just playing. We're playing. So we've got this central channel and these two secondary channels feeding into it. And there, you've got the basis of the body of bliss there. If you just deliteralize your body, of course it's bones and muscle and aches and pains, but it's also energy and light and bliss, kindness. These different levels exist together, don't they? This is why you see these old these old Tibetan meditation, Dzogchen masters, they come out, they're decrepit, they take the meditation posture, and suddenly there's all this energy and vitality there. This is why Lorca's old hag can win the flamenco competition. She's got the duende. This is the spirit of our practice. To recognize our body of bliss and delight, even in our decrepitude. That's fine. Nice soft face. All that beauty and tenderness inside you, isn't there? Just wanting life. So don't mistake what we've been doing as some kind of technique. It's just a fancy way of talking about breathing in and breathing out. Or everything's contained. If you just fully relax into the breath, all of what needs for you will reveal itself to you. It's just a sensitivity to your own energetic body which is unique to you. And actually it's just breathing in and breathing out. That's all it is. You breathe in the whole world. And when you breathe out the whole world. This is just what's happening moment to moment. follow the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the myriad of things. Just making your transition to your laying posture. Oh gosh. Okay. Okay. So just getting comfortable enough, and just the maybe the image of just allowing the ground to hold you as you are. Some of this, what we're doing here, comes from kind of inspired by the ancient practice we find in ancient Greece. I'm sure it was all over the Mediterranean world of we used to call it incubation. They'll go into a cave or a shrine place, a sacred place, and lay on the earth and wait for a divine influx which would come up from the earth into the form of a dream or a vision, or the god with goddess revealing itself to them. They kind of had this idea, didn't they, that things were brought by the gods. So if you wanted to affect your life, you had to know which god had brought the well, usually we appeal to the gods when we need help, don't we? So the misfortune or the illness, you had to know which god to worship, to give worship to in order to, because the god that gave had to be the god that took away. Yeah. Anyway, don't worry about any of that, just relaxing. Oh. So just laying still for another few moments as you recollect yourself, remembering yourself, and then when you feel ready, you can come back to your sitting postures, just noticing how this change of alignment feels. So we'll just have a period of just sitting, just see what you can make of your breath and your heart and your body and the world. Just see what it's a delicate business, isn't it? We're trying to meditate without craving, seeing what the world offers us, how the world is manifesting through you, yeah? How the world wants to manifest through you. There's Lorca's ditty of first desire. In the green morning, I wanted to be a heart, a heart. In the lush evening, I wanted to be a nightingale, a nightingale. Soul, turn orange colored. Soul, turn the color of love. In the vivid morning, I wanted to be myself, a heart. At the evening's end, I wanted to be my voice, a nightingale. Soul, turn orange colored. Soul, turn the color of love. just noticing what's happening. Notice that the world is still there, your breath is still there. The world is happening. Your body is happening. Ditthi of first desire. In the green morning, I wanted to be a heart, a heart. In the lush evening, I wanted to be a nightingale, a nightingale. Soul, turn orange-coloured. Soul, turn the colour of love. In the vivid morning, I wanted to be myself, a heart. At the evening's end, I wanted to be my voice, a nightingale. Soul, turn orange-coloured. Soul, turn the colour of love. So we're coming to the end of this morning's session. Maybe if you can, just you can. I mean, obviously, you can always do a bit of practice on your own, but just try not to get too frantic. Yeah, just try and have a, if possible. I know it's not possible if you've got kids or you've got a busy life. I mean, it's just how it is, isn't it? But if possible, just have a, see if you can have a kind of meditative day. Just we're trying to let these practices, this opening of the heart, this tenderness, sort of come into our life, aren't we? We're not. It's not just something we do on a cushion. The meditation part of it is the least of it, really, isn't it? Because we've all got a life, you know. trying to let those qualities blossom in our lives, aren't we? So try and see if you can just not have too much of a sort of contrast between you on the cushion and you in the world. You know. It's a funny business, though, isn't it? Like in that Frank O'Hara's poem when it says, and isn't it odd, in rooms full of people, my most tender feelings rive and bear their fruit in screaming. So we never quite know what's going to happen, do we? So, you know, when we get into maybe a little bit more full sense of ourselves, of course, sometimes the unexpected will come, but anyway, enough of all that. So, see you later, hopefully, 3:30, a bit more practice, and yeah, have a good day.